Good day, I am Mark Gersel and Brillo from BSEE-3A. So today I will be presenting our activity in ECE-37 microprocessors. Let us proceed. So now you can see the result of my CPU-Z. My microprocessor is AMD Ryzen 3 3200G with a result of 1662 points, and I will be comparing it to the nearest microprocessor, which is the Intel Core i5 6600K with a result of 1621. Which among the two processor is more powerful in terms of raw computational ability in productivity tasks? So we will see the technical specs of the Intel Core i5 6600K and Ryzen 3 3200K. So it comes with physical cores. Both of them have 4 quad-core. In threads, they both have 4. And on base clock speed, the Intel Core has a 3.5 GHz, while the Ryzen is 3.6 GHz, which is 0.1 higher than the i5. And when it comes to boost clock speed, 3.9 GHz for Intel i5, and we have 4 GHz for AMD Ryzen 3 3200G. So in L1 cache, we have 64K per core in i5, and we don't have any data in Ryzen 3. And in L2 cache, we have 256K per core in i5, and L3 cache, we have 6 MB shared in Core i5, and we have no data in it in AMD Ryzen when it comes to L1, L2, L3, and chip lithography. So yeah, it also no data. So next, the chip lithography of the AMD Ryzen i5 is 14 nanometer. So when it comes to die size, the i5 has 122 millimeter squared, and the AMD has a 210 millimeter squared. When it comes to maximum core temperature, the i5 has a 64 degrees Celsius, and we have no data on Ryzen 3. When it comes to maximum case temperature, we have 72 degrees and no data in Ryzen 3. And number of transistors, we have no data in Core i5, and we have 4,950 million in AMD Ryzen 3. So when it comes to 64-bit support, both of them supports the 64-bit and has no negative in Windows 11 compatibility, and the unlock multiplier is present in Core i5 while has no data in Ryzen 3 3200G. So we have here the different benchmark result of Core i5 and Ryzen 3. So as we can see, Core i5 is 13%, has a 13% advantage than the Ryzen 3 3200G with a gaming result of 79%, desktop of 83%, and workstation of 60%, while the Ryzen 3 has 70% in gaming, desktop of 73%, and workstation by 54%. So we can see that it is 13% beneficial, which is it is ranked 187th out of 1347, and the AMD Ryzen is 356th out of 1347 microprocessors. So i5 has a 78.9 overall average, and the Ryzen 3 has a 69.7% total average. So we also have here the overclock score of the Core i5, which has the advantage of 17% than the Ryzen 3. So we can see the following result in lower OC memory latency, faster OC single core speed, faster OC dual core speed, faster OC quad core speed, and faster OC octa core speed. So overall 17% advantage. So we will compare the different benchmarks of different application used in gathering data for microprocessor. So when Geek2Geek bench for single core, So our CPU 1 is Ryzen and CPU 2 is Intel Core i5. So we can see here that the Intel Core has the result of 1103, which you can see it is advantageous, and we have the multi-core using Geekbench. We can see that still Core i5 has the leading points of 3627. So next, we'll see the pass mark using the single thread mark. We can still see that the Core i5 is the leading one with 2332 points. And using the pass mark CPU mark, we can see the difference here, whereas the Ryzen 3 is the leading one, which has the 7192 points. And next, we will see the third mark Fire Strike physics score, that the Intel Core i5 is still the leading, which is 3781 points. So overall, we can see that the Core i5 6600K is the leading one. Why is Intel Core i5 6600K better than AMD Ryzen 3 3200G? So 7.97% higher pass mark result, 2 MB bigger L3 cache, 6 MB versus 4 MB, 0.5 MB core more L3 cache per core, use multi-threading, 185.4 more performance per watt, 19.76 higher pass mark result overclock, and 16 more GPU execution units. Next, why is AMD Ryzen 3 3200G better than Intel Core i5 6600K? So 800 MHz higher RAM speed, 900 MHz faster GPU clock speed, 2 nanometers smaller semiconductor size, 1 MB bigger L2 cache, 26 watts lower TDP, 31 degrees Celsius higher maximum operating temperature, 256 kilobytes bigger L3 cache, 0.3 MB per core more L2 cache per core. Which among the two processor is more powerful in terms of overall gaming performance? By playing Valorant, we can see that these are the performance of the different core using ultra quality game graphics with different resolution. So we can see here the frames per second of the Ryzen 3 at the color green one, and the Intel Core i5 6600K at the yellow one. So we can see that at 1080p, the Ryzen 3, which is the color green one, has a 120.6 FPS, and the Core i5 has 112.4 FPS. So overall, with the different resolution we can see on our screen, we can see that the Core i5 6600K has a lower FPS than Ryzen 3 3200G, which is i5 is way better than Ryzen in playing Valorant. Next game is Call of Duty Black Ops Cold War, with still having ultra quality game graphics and with different resolution. We can see that Ryzen 3 has a lower FPS compared to Core i5. So generally in this game, it has been overpowered by Ryzen 3 3200G because it has a lower FPS than Core i5. And our next game is the Assassin's Creed Valhalla. So still having the ultra quality graphics, the Ryzen 3 has lower FPS in all the resolution, 1080p until W1440p. This is the FPS in top 5 games using graphic card of GeForce RTX 3090 with a resolution of 1920 by 1080 and having high graphics. So we can see that the Ryzen 3 is the gray one and the Intel Core is the blue one. So we can see that most of the game, we can see that Ryzen 3 has a lower FPS. So which among the two processor is more cost effective? You can see here the price in Philippine peso. The 6600K Core i5 is worth 10,571, which is released in the third quarter of 2015, while the Ryzen 3 3200G is released on second quarter of 2019 and is worth 14,367. We have here the data of the Core i5 and the Ryzen 3 when it comes to being cost effective, wherein Core i5 is advantageous in market share by 11%, better value by 23%, more popular by 16%, and cheaper by 26%. So if you're gonna look at the data from January 2020 to February 2022, we can see that generally Core i5 is or has a lower value than Ryzen 3. These are the sources where I've gathered my data in the report. Thank you for watching.